Hello everyone and welcome back to the Aether Hub and more Magic the Gathering news and lore. Had to mix up the intro because today's video isn't strictly about MTG lore. I mean, of course I can't help myself, so I'll talk about it a little, but I also wanted to include some of the other news we got headed into Zendikar Rising spoiler season. New cards, mechanics, and even some future sets. So, let's get into it. First, some lore. Yes, Zendikar Rising did have a proper trailer, and yes, my thoughts on it are mixed. I didn't do a live reaction to the trailer because I was at work and temptation got the better of me. But honestly, that was probably for the best because, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers here, it just wasn't very exciting. Although I must admit, some of the more recent set trailers have been actually just cringeworthy, at least in my opinion, so going back to neutral was actually a step forward. We follow Nahiri and a band of Zendikar natives, seemingly those she's teamed up with, another core and a merfolk, spelunking through some of the ancient constructs of Zendikar. They grab some mysterious looking artifact and the place begins to tremble all Indiana Jones style, emphasizing that this is an adventure set with treasure and dangerous booby traps, etc. Well, as the trio make their escape, an elemental, a royal of Zendikar, attacks. We have some nice offensive and defensive magic from the entourage, but Nahiri finishes the royal off by activating said mysterious orb that eradicates this threat to dust, and in the process also killing off their merfolk companion. Nahiri, being a lithomancer, having control over rocks, earth, and gems, shows off those powers in this trailer during the group's escape, but now finds herself confronted by her core ally demanding to know what this thing actually was. Something powerful and uncontrollable enough to kill friend and foe alike. Nahiri subtly dodges the question and points to the orb's applications, to free Zendikar's denizens from the danger of the royals. The core looks to instead destroy this artifact, but Nahiri can't allow that, freezing her in place with one of the many hedrons Nahiri crafted herself to imprison the Eldrazi Titans. Nahiri takes back the orb, and to add insult to injury, yeets her friend off the edge, killing her. Not really sure why she does this, it's like destroying a creature enchanted with pacifism, but sure. Nahiri takes that extra step towards villainry. That's my takeaway from the Zendikar Rising trailer. Nahiri is on the path to becoming a full-blown villain. This was something I predicted in other videos. Check those receipts, guys. The writing was all over the walls. This trailer just cements that theory. Although she's not like a cartoonish villain with the desire to take over Zendikar, which is honestly where I thought the quality of writing at Wizards was heading, Nahiri is driven by a conviction to protect Zendikar at all costs, even to the point of hurting those who disagree with her tactics. And using weapons, she can hardly comprehend their potential impact on those around her. So yes, she looks to be the antagonist, but she probably doesn't feel that way. Nahiri is going mad. In her goal to free Zendikar from the royals, something else I believed could happen in this story, Nahiri is becoming blind to those who she originally set out to help. She obviously wants to protect the denizens of Zendikar, but in doing so, she may take away any choice or freedoms they would rather enjoy in a more dangerous world. Safety and security over individual freedom. A classic conflict we've seen time and time again. And it looks like Nahiri has already chosen her destiny. If not evil, I would classify Nahiri as ruthless and determined to a fault. She's firmly in the ends justify the means territory. Plus, it was sort of an ass move just kicking her friend off the cliff like that. I mean, come on, you already took the orb, you can just walk away. So I'm not going to sit here and brag about being right this entire video because there's just so much more to get to when it comes to Zendikar Rising, such as a new mechanic which I'm really loving right now called Party. It's an effect on cards which benefits from you having one of each specific creature type that makes up a party on the battlefield. This is a nod to classic adventuring and RPG tropes that Zendikar Rising aesthetically looks to play off of. A party is made up of a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard, and cards with party get either better or additional effects depending on how many of those 4 creature types you have in play, such as Coveted Prize, which becomes cheaper with each additional creature you have in your party. Of course, you're going to have classic creatures with just one of those creature types at any time, but you'll also have easier ways to fill this requirement, with cards such as Tajuru Paragon, which got a little greedy and is an elf that also counts as one of each cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard, filling either whatever slot you may be missing in your party, or she can count as an entire party of one. Now, I'm not an expert on this mechanic, I mean it was just revealed after all, so pro players out there need to fill me in. Do you need to have a full party to make these effects work? Or is it just any creature out with these creature types? Do you need one of each creature type to even count as a party? Let me know in the comments, and thanks in advance. Now, if this mechanic seems a little weird for Magic the Gathering, but familiar for another game made by the same company, well, you're right on the money. This idea of an adventuring party was pioneered and perfected by Dungeons & Dragons. And while MTG and D&D share a parent company, it's not just company loyalty that's bringing us this mechanic in Zendikar Rising. We were shown the yearly set timeline for MTG leading into 2021, and yep, right there, your eyes aren't mistaken, that's a Dungeons & Dragons themed standard playable set coming later down the road. As Zendikar Rising and this D&D set will share the same standard rotation, don't think that this party mechanic is going to stay isolated to just the plane of Zendikar. And speaking of future sets, looking at what was revealed, I'm super excited for Kaldheim, the little known world of snow-covered mountains and Norse mythology with a heavy Viking aesthetic MTG players have been begging for years now. Lore-wise, Kaldheim has been mentioned a few times by passing planeswalkers. Angrath, for example, has been there and even showed, I believe it was Huatli, a portal to this snowy plane. It's been around since the Planechase Anthology series, so we know this one has some history to it, and that's something we're going to explore in another video. But at first glance, it's just so great to see Wizards of the Coast exploring this world and what it could have to offer. Certainly, it's one of the most anticipated future sets for me. Tracking back towards the hype of Zendikar Rising, today's news brought us a bunch of new cards for this upcoming set, and I wanted to share just a few of those today that I was most excited for. Spoilers, they're all creatures and characters with a deep lore on the plane of Zendikar. First off, the Blood Chief of the Zendikari Vampires, Drana, and her new card, Drana the Last Blood Chief. She's a 4/4 flyer for 3 generic and double black. Whenever she attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. So I've loved Drana as a character for years now, especially how she sort of rose in the ranks during the Battle for Zendikar story arc, and it seems she's firmly cemented herself as the Blood Chief of Zendikar. As a card, this thing is extremely good value. Sure, your opponent gets the ultimate choice of what creature to get back, and it's only really great value if you have a ton of high quality creatures to bring back in general, but hey, that's all on top of being a 4/4 flyer for 5 mana. Even if all you're bringing back are a bunch of 1/1 chumps, they're now 2/2s, and will help quickly overwhelm your opponent. In Limited, this thing is a bomb and a half, and will win you a game in just a few turns if not dealt with. I really like it. Next, we have the elemental we have all been waiting for, a staple in Zendikar sets since the very beginning, Omnath, who is sporting a brand new color in white with a load of text to go with it. Omnath Locus of Creation is a 4/4 legendary elemental for 1 of each red, green, white, and blue mana. When Omnath Locus of Creation enters the battlefield, draw a card. It also has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's the second time, add a red, green, white, and blue mana to your mana pool. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. Omnath here really cares about lands. In a lands matter set, which Zendikar Rising is clearly trying to push, this means a lot. Playing multiple lands a turn is already amazing, and this guy gives you some more awesome payouts for already doing stuff that you love. While a super strong card to build around, it could be pretty hard to pull off its cost in a limited format. Still, if you're just playing it and dropping a single land, you're gonna love it. At the same time, you best have some alternate sources of mana to pay for its pairing cost. Of course, in standard and other constructed formats, Omnath, as it has been in the past, will be a great thing to build around. And the final card I'd like to look at in this video, the one, the only Nissa, sporting a brand new Golgari pairing that has since been confirmed from a leak a while ago. Nissa of the Shadowed Boughs. Bows? Boughs? I don't know. It's a 4 loyalty planeswalker for 2 generic and Golgari colors. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a loyalty counter on Nissa of Shadowed Boughs. +1, untap target land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn, it's still a land. And her -5 ability, you may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Want to know how to make a set care about lands? Give a Planeswalker Landfall. This card, and I'm no expert, but it seems really strong. Getting a couple loyalty counters each turn at least with the possibility of more per turn just seems ripe for exploitation. The only thing about this Planeswalker I don't like is that it doesn't really have an easy way to protect itself. Making a 3/3 elemental that only lasts until the end of your turn won't do it. But still, that +1 ability, untapping a land, that's gonna be nice for some extra ramp. It does say you have the choice of making it a 3/3 creature. You can just untap it and keep it as a land. Her -5 not being as strong as an ultimate, but being way more playable, is also a massive threat. Grabbing creatures from your hand or graveyard with added counters just seems like a lot of value, especially if played in the right decks. A deck, for example, Omnath might like. It would see you slamming down multiple lands per turn and just ramping Nissa up out of control. Last thought on this new Nissa is her being Golgari colors but not seeming to be any different in her ideology or personality. We often incorrectly connect black mana to being evil or underhanded, sly, mischievous, dastardly, undead things, etc. And while Nissa does bring things back from the graveyard, she also brings in new things from the hand, symbolizing creation. Her green-black alignment isn't some turn towards a darker side, but a realization of the cycle of life, death, and rebirth that Zendikar, her home, is going through in the wake of the Eldrazi Titans. So yes, I've seen a lot of people tweeting at me that there's an evil Nissa theory, but despite these colors, I believe this is the same Nissa we all know and understand her to be. And to sort of wrap up this Day 1 Zendikar Rising announcement recap, something I and many other Vorthos out there will be celebrating: the return of weekly online story articles as the main medium for the MTG storyline. Yes, it's finally happened. The end of the failed new era of storytelling preached by Wizards of the Coast that gave us the highly panned War of the Spark novel is ending, and the dawn of a new era, which is a carbon copy of the original era of storytelling, is about to begin. Yes, I sound salty, and I do want to express my true feelings surrounding this change, but try to remain as positive as possible. I love the story of MTG, you guys. I literally made a channel devoted almost entirely to that one subject and have been running it for nearly 7 years. I'm passionate about it. But Wizards has really dropped the ball with these most recent stories, failing big time with what was meant to be the biggest, most blockbuster-worthy story of their entire game's history, War of the Spark, and it falling utterly flat. It was clear that e-novels and hard copies and comics were not getting people excited. Their high entry fee by comparison to the free online articles just killed people, specifically the casual Vorthos' desire to keep up to date. That, coupled with subpar writing and story decisions that made no sense, i.e. killing the relationship between Nissa and Chandra, or straight up killing Dack Fayden with absolutely no fanfare, just resulted in the worst few years ever for fans of this game's story, myself included. But with the announcement of the returned weekly stories online, Wizards of the Coast has a chance to recapture the magic that once blossomed this small Vorthos community. Consistent stories, freely available, written by a diverse cast of authors who better represent the whole of the MTG community and who can bring unique talents to our favorite characters. It's the best thing they could have done as a company for the story, to admit that they failed in their new era of storytelling, and to start back at square one with what made people interested in the first place. So, with that rant out of the way, yes, this is truly exciting news. And we ain't just getting one single story a week, but two. One for the main Zendikar Rising storyline, and another with a brief side story of a legendary creature from the set. So this will be a renaissance for this channel, you guys. These story articles are what I built this community out of originally, and for you, there's going to be so much more Vorthos content coming in the near future, and that's something we can all get excited about. And that about sums up my thoughts on the first day of Zendikar Rising previews and news. Loads of great lore stuff coming, as well as some preview cards as they're spoiled, so be on the lookout for those as well. We have a few busy weeks ahead of us here at the Aether Hub. Of course, this wasn't everything dropped today, not by a long shot, so if I missed what you're most excited for, let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video and are pumped for Zendikar Rising, let me know by leaving this video a like, sharing it with friends, and of course subscribing so you never miss out on the release of future videos. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!